Monday night, John Lund in the house. It was all Packers Monday Night Football. Man, I'm glad that I took the Packers to the under. Feeling very good about that and feeling good about the holidays. We're, of course, brought to you, The Krueg Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. And tonight, this live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of The Krueg Show. A lot of Niners to get into. Let's go right All right, there we go. A little slow on the draw there. Welcome to the Krueg Show, Monday night after Monday Night Football. I'm watching a little bit at the end of Warriors-Pacers. Or maybe I'm watching highlights. No, I'm actually watching live ball. 5 minutes left to play, 97-95. Warriors on top of the Pacers. Welcome to the Krueg Show. John Lund in the house in his regular spot Monday night after Monday Night Football. We are brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. Check them out. Best barbecue there is. Damon and Mary. Amazing brisket chili. If you're in Corte Madera, check out the potato chips. They're fantastic. Cooked in beef fat. I mean, think about that for a second. Unbelievable restaurant. Pig and a Pickle. People say, why do you say it that way? I say it that way because people remember it when I say Pig and a Pickle.
Bro, brisket chili. The way the weather's been lately. Chili rain, man. Brisket chili. That's
spicy.
Good,
spicy too.
That
you look, when you have chili and you get a little sweaty on the top lip because it's hot. It's hot.
Oh,
really good, really good. And then the other day he made us chicken pot pies, homemade chicken pot pies.
Come on.
With the barbecue chicken. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. So Pig and a Pickle, check it out. People send me pictures of the location all the time. Of course, we're brought to you as well by our good friends at Sharp Corners, Sports Cards and Collectibles. My good friend Anthony Catania is a big Niner fan. He's at 205 Cypress Avenue in Pacific Grove, California, on the Monterey Peninsula. Give him a call if you need sports cards or collectibles. 831-521-5264. Anthony, happy holidays. And to you and your family down there along the Monterey Peninsula. And, of course, Better. The live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krueg Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. We've won like 5 times this year. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. And thanks to Better for being a proud sponsor of the Krueg Show. All right. We are off and running. And, Johnny, how about Green Bay tonight? They look good. I know everybody thinks it's Detroit, and there's been so much talk about Detroit. But I'm telling you, Brian Gutekunst, the GM of the Pack, is a really good young GM, and he had a phenomenal couple-year run here where they drafted Jordan Love, gave him the time. This year they went out in free agency. They didn't want to go get a lot of guys, but they got 2 guys. They got Josh Jacobs on the offensive side, and they got Xavier McKinney on the defensive side. And they have both been epic home runs. Jacobs got in the end zone tonight. Packers had 3 rushing touchdowns. And, I don't know what more you can say about McKinney. I mean, he has just been monster for them all season long. He had 2 tackles tonight, 1 pass defensed. But Xavier McKinney has like 8 or 9 takeaways on the year. So Green Bay knows what they're doing. I think Green Bay and Philly are going to give Detroit all they want and maybe more than they want in the playoffs. Who do you think gets out of the NFC?
Man, I'll tell you, it's too bad the Niners aren't in there this year because and throw Minnesota in there because I'll be honest with you, I was 100% wrong about Sam Darnold. Man, maybe throwing the ball to Justin Jefferson is not too bad, but he made a throw in that Seattle game yesterday where he climbed the pocket and drilled one right over the head of Woolen, who's been absolutely terrible, and Julian Love didn't get over there, but it was a hell of a throw by Darnold. I think between those teams, and because Brian Flores is so aggressive defensively, it's it can be hit and miss with them. But we saw with the Niners, they really struggled with the Brian Flores defense. So between Minnesota, Green Bay, Detroit, out of that division alone, and then like you said, with Philadelphia doing what they did, and I know they lost to the Commanders, but if Jalen Hurts is healthy, then Philly's going to be in it. That's going to be tough in the NFC. I don't think Detroit's getting out of there because I lived in Detroit, worked in Detroit, and I just can't even believe they're still good. I think the Lions are going to lion. That's why I text my friends back in Detroit all the time. Lions going to lion. You just wait. They've got a ton of injuries. Losing Montgomery's a big deal. I know Gibbs is great. But defensively, you don't have Aiden Hutchinson. You don't have quite the rush. I know they picked up Zadarius Smith, but he's not what he used to be. They got a lot of injuries on defense. They got some young corners on that team who have played well. Terrion Arnold has played well, the kid out of Alabama, as you well know. But come playoff time, I think it's a different animal. So I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit got upset early, even though it's been a great year for them. They set a franchise record in wins and all those kind of things. I still don't trust the Lions.
Who do you think is the best coach among the NFC playoff teams? Because it's Campbell gets a lot of headlines. He talks a big game. I think he's a good football man. He's a good leader, but I think his in-game decision making leaves a lot to be desired.
Yes, you watch. Just like with the Niners last year in the NFC Championship game, the ones that he went for, everybody celebrates him, and I understand that kind of stuff, and it works. In the playoffs, that stuff has a way of, there's got to be a happy medium between what Dan Campbell does and what Kyle Shanahan does, right? There's got to be some kind of middle ground there. I think that Dan Campbell is going to try to pull that stuff in the playoffs, and I think it's going to backfire. I think it's easily LaFleur. I think LaFleur is having a great year. Probably Kevin O'Connor is going to get Kevin O'Connell is going to get maybe the coach of the year because of what Minnesota has done, and everybody gives him a ton of credit on Darnold. I'd say Kyle had a lot to do with that as well. But LaFleur, the game plan they had against Seattle the week before, and like you just mentioned, Josh Jacobs, that might be the signing of the year. I know that, Saquon Barkley's the signing of the year, but still, for the Raiders to just let Jacobs go, they've had no running game this year. And he's absolutely bulldozed a bunch of teams this year. He's given them a toughness that they just didn't have before. Here's the thing that's funny is because everyone's becoming tough like the Niners. You look at these teams. Detroit, just like the Niners, built an offensive line. They punch you in the mouth. They have this attitude. The Rams have done that, getting better on both the offensive and defensive lines. The Vikings have an aggressive defense. They do that kind of thing. They're more of a passing team. But everybody looked at what the 49ers are doing, and then what the 49ers do. They forgot. Their offensive line is atrocious. Trent Williams is done for the year, could be done for his career. The Niners were that team that punched you in the mouth, and then they forgot to fortify their offensive and defensive lines. And then you look at the rest of the NFC, and that's exactly what they do. They bully you. Even the Eagles, they have a great offensive line. They bully you. Saquon Barkley is having the year that Christian McCaffrey had last year. So all the teams in the NFC that are successful, they bully you. And that's why even the Rams, they're going to win this division. And it's the whole reason why the Niners aren't the Niners anymore. We can talk about injuries and weirdness and everything in the season. They can't do it at the line of scrimmage. That's the bottom line.
Well, and look at the difference in the Niners' weapons and the Packers' weapons at the receiver position. The Niners next year are going into the year with Debo, who makes a ton, who's old, and may never be the same player. He looked great this week, but it was his first touchdown in 2 months. I love the people who are like, yeah, all you people crapping on Debo. Yeah, he had the last laugh. What? That was his first touchdown in 2 months. Put down the pom-poms and get real.
He dropped that pass against the Rams when they needed him to catch it, right?
Yeah, I mean
that's all I remember from his year is everybody telling me how great a shape he was in, and then he just crapped all year long. And then when they're out of it, I don't count that stuff. When you're out of it, you have a great game. Congratulations. You know what he was doing, Krug? He was trying out for Mike McDaniel because everybody's saying that Tyreek Hill is going to leave next year. I could see Debo, going to the Dolphins or somebody like that. He's trying out. I mean, the whole reason why he went off on I'm not getting the ball, it's not my fault. He wasn't doing that for Kyle Shanahan. He could go into his office and say that. He wasn't doing it for Brock Purdy. He was doing it for other teams around the league because he knows he's going to be gone. He was saying, hey, it's not my fault, man. When you sign me in the offseason or trade for me, it's not my fault. He was saying it to the rest of the league. And then the game he had this against Miami, that was for Mike McDaniel. That was for the rest of the league. That wasn't for the Niners. They were already out of it. What exactly did he prove? I mean, that was a heck of a play at the goal line. Give him 100% of the credit for not quitting. But George Kittle has not quit all year long. That's the guy where if I'm going to give some credit to somebody, Kittle, who easily could tap out because he's always banged up, he could do this. He's been doing this all season long. He's had an amazing season. Because Debo broke a couple of tackles at the goal line when the Niners were out of it against the Dolphins. He's getting credit for that. He dropped the pass against the Rams when it mattered the most.
Right. Once again, his touchdown this week was his first touchdown in 8 weeks. Okay. So, but think about that from the Niner perspective. Next year, whether he's here or not, He's a run through you type player who's 29. So he's either at the end, he's either done or near the end, either any way you slice it. Okay, so that's undeniable. Then you've got Ayuk, who may not play much in the first half of the year because of his injury. His injury looked catastrophic. I would say it would be shocking if he's returns to form ever, if let alone next year before probably the second half of the year. So so he's a gigantic question mark. So you don't know what you're getting from Debo. You don't know what you're getting from Ayuk. Pearsall is running around and not getting tons done. Blame it on whoever you want. Cowing is not even good enough to get on the field in the eyes of Shanahan. And Conley's a special teamer. Okay, so what do you got? Then I'm looking at Green Bay tonight. These are their weapons. I'm the receiving weapons. Jaden Reed, ball player. Tucker Kraft, bet one of the best young tight ends in the game. Romeo Dobbs, I think a terrific receiver, really good on the boundary along the sideline. Dontavion Wicks, he's physical, really good receiver. Christian Watson, he didn't do anything tonight, but Christian Watson's a home run hitter with big time speed, and he's huge. Bo Melton, Luke Musgrave. They have 7 guys that they don't pay combined what the Niners probably pay Ayuk. So, that's that right there. Gutekunst said goodbye to Devontae Adams. He figured out a way to get out of that and into a situation where he's got a deep collection of young weapons. None of them maybe are as great as Devontae Adams individually, but it doesn't matter. They have tremendous depth. And look at the 49ers next year. 49ers need to rebuild their offensive line, defensive line, linebacking core, need a corner, need a free safety, and still they have to somehow rebuild their receivers and running back room because we don't know what they're getting from their top guys. So night and day difference between where Green Bay is as a personnel, as a roster, and where the Niners are.
Well, you can look at the entire NFC, and Philly was obviously on par with the 49ers, but the Rams have rebuilt themselves very fast. Detroit has Holmes and Campbell and all the guys in their front office, the guys who made the decision. They've had 2 or 3 drafts that are the type of drafts that get you going forever. With Jamison Williams and Amon-Ra and Brian Branch and Aiden Hutchinson. Start going down the line with those kind of guys. The offensive line that they've built, picking up Montgomery, getting Gibbs. All those moves are just boom, 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 boom. They just nailed them all. Jack Campbell, the linebacker out of Iowa. The corners that they got, they addressed everything. They went out and made a trade with Tampa. They overhauled their defensive backfield from last year against the Niners. You just mentioned Green Bay, but Green Bay has done it. The Rams have done it. The Lions have done it. The Vikings had an off year. Having said all those things, let me say something positive because everybody's cooking me because I said Debo's not going to be here next year, which he's not. The Niners are not dead. I think the national media has this perception that because they had an off year, and boy, did they have an off year with just the weirdness, the injuries, and everything else. Although I have a theory on what has happened regardless of the injuries, they're going to still be back. If you look at this division, it's still not going to be great. The Seahawks have a while to go. The Rams are the Rams. They're solid, but they're not great. And the Cardinals are just the Cardinals. They do what they do. But if you look at this team from a health perspective, they're going to get a top 10 pick. You and I have talked about this numerous times. They need to go get a tackle because I don't know that Trent is going to come back. They need to fortify that offensive line to be what they once were and start beating people up on the line. They have Purdy and really nothing else. Banks is a free agent. I don't like McKivitz generally. Too many times the center is down. I constantly am looking and it's like, oh, there he is. He's on the ground again. So they've got to fortify that with a top 10 pick. Hopefully they can do that, but they've got to get back to bullying guys or bullying teams. But having said that, they have talent both on the offensive and defensive side if they can stay healthy, but they got to put together a hell of a draft. They have got to fortify the lines. It's got to be about the offensive and defensive lines. They're not going to be able to be big players in free agency because they are going to take a hit when Debo leaves. Hargrave, I don't think, is going to be around. Ward is not going to be around. They got a decision to make on Dre because he's already feeling the effects of the Achilles. How much money do you give him? It's a massive offseason because as you pointed out, Green Bay's on the ups. The Rams are on the ups. Philly's on the ups. Detroit's on the ups. They all have really young or prime talent on their teams. and the 49ers are kind of on the other end of the spectrum. So they've got to pull off this draft, the next draft, make a decision on Brock, how much they're going to pay him. It's this offseason, I think we always say it, but I think more than any other offseason, can they extend this window? I think they can, but they've got to be great.
We titled the stream what the 49ers ugly loss against the Dolphins means for the team's future, and we're going to definitely get to that. The chat is kind of going in that direction. Some of the good ones here. Adata84 says, man, Krueg, you were right on about the 49ers needing Zach Frazier at center. Yeah, I like Frazier quite a bit. Frazier's gone to Pittsburgh. He's the best rookie offensive lineman in the league. Could you imagine if they had dominating Zach Frazier next to dominating Dom Pooney? That would have been a really nice combo. They could have had him easily. They took Ricky Pearsall. B. Lauren says, do we pay Purdy? Not if we want to be competitive. We will get to that as well, because that is a big topic and that a lot of people want to talk about, and we will get to it for sure tonight. We have this one from Don't, who says, trade back in the draft and draft all guys in the trenches. Trenches. Okay. Kind of like that. Thank you, Don't. And Steve Cass, who's a regular, says, this year there's a great tight end in Taylor Warren. I think he means Tyler Warren. And Kittle won't be on the team in 2026.
I'll tell you, he might have changed some minds, because you know this as much as I do. Kittle tends to rub people the wrong way. He doesn't have an off button. He can tend to frustrate Kyle at times. But, I mean, he has shown so much leadership. He's played so well, and I know he's played through injuries. George Kittle has been the duct tape that has kept this team together. I mean, he is just –
no question.
He just won't let the team die. And, you know, he was asked in the post game about, you know, the last couple of games. And he's like, as long as I'm out here, we're going to lead, and I don't see how they can't. And tight end's not a position that's going to crush you. It's not quarterback. It's not edge rusher. I mean, in terms of the highest paid guys, I'd keep Kittle around until the wheels fall off. I just think he's so important. Every part of this team, the block, on the field, the blocking, the catching, all this kind of stuff. But it's just everything. The locker room, the attitude, a lot of it is because of George Kittle. Guys like Warner and Kittle, people don't realize what they do to get this team going.
Yeah. I mean, this is the guy that sets the tone in the room. How many teams have their tight end as the tone setting player? But that's the 49ers. I mean, if you said, who are the tone setting players in the Niner room? I would say Debo, Juwan Jennings.
Demo. I think Demo Lenore has turned into that.
Lenore.
Fred Warner.
Bosa, probably.
Yeah, he's
Hufanga. The power corner has Hufanga, Greenlaw, Purdy, all right there next to each other. It's kind of the power corner. Then they're all linemen are there as well. But yeah, I would say, and then Big Trent has, two lockers. 111-105 Pacers beat the Warriors tonight in Oakland. Hey, I'm going to share the screen and do something that shows that we're kind of ill, but people have made a couple of references here to the draft. So I'm just going to share the screen real quick and we'll just take a quick peek. We're not going to do this whole thing.
I love it.
We're not going to do this whole thing.
I know. But come on, man. This is where
here we go. We might as well. We got the 11th pick. All right.
Oh, are you already working trades?
No, I mean, they always offer you trades. I can hide it. So here's the question. The Niners this year need great players in this draft, but they also need volume.
Yeah.
Because they got two trade offers. They're picking 11 right now. Mm-hmm. You can have 28, 60, 92 and next year's second from Philly. Or you could have 29, 61, 62 and next year's second from Buffalo, but you also got to give up pick 101, which I don't like. So, and then you can hide it and say, who's on the board? Okay, so let's look at who's on the board. The Niners could really use this guy right here, Malachi Starks. I mean, Malachi Starks would be a tremendous free safety for the 49ers.
Puff pass on driving high. Sorry. Yeah, there.
This Abdul Carter went one pick before, unfortunately, to the Saints. I figured I would bust out the mock draft since we just talked draft for a second. So
okay, let me get a little closer.
Malachi Starks is there. Okay, let me see here. Yeah.
I do like James Pierce Jr. I do Pierce Jr. I do like him from Tennessee, although he sucked the other night against Ohio State, but I do like him.
Okay, so let me see. Let me just
Kevin, what about Banks? You like
see.
Banks?
Then there's
I don't know
Kelvin Banks, a gigantic tackle from Texas. There's Luther Burden, who's another receiver. I don't think he can go receiver. There's an edge rusher, James Pierce, who's really, really talented, and Scourton, who's the transfer, who's playing at A&M, number 11 for A&M. He's there. Isaiah Bond, the Alabama transfer, who's at Texas. The great tight end from Michigan, Colston Loveland. This is the guy the guy just asked about, Tyler Warren, the tight end from Penn State. But I kind of am looking at these guys and saying, I love Malachi Starks. And to me, he could be a great, great free safety.
Well, are they going to re-sign Hufanga? He's going to be looking for same money. We came in here talking about Xavier McKinney. Xavier McKinney got like $70 million. I don't know if they can afford it with Purdy's deal coming up and all these other guys coming up. But if you're going to re-sign him, then you don't need a safety. You've got a lot of youth in the safety. And by the way, Jared Brown has not been great.
Oh.
I like Mustafa. He's a nice player, but he's run and hit. I'm a little nervous about those young guys back there. Plus, you're going to have Green next year. That's going to be a young secondary.
Ooh. So, I mean, I'm saying to me, the plan this year would be volume. So I'm looking at Malachi Starks there, but the other guys I kind of like in the first round are more down here. Walter Nolan, I kind of like, and I kind of like Jalen Walker, the Georgia linebacker. But I love Walter Nolan. I love Jihad Campbell, the Alabama linebackers.
Don't they have to go O-line? I mean, their O-line is atrocious. And what if Trent doesn't
O-line, but I do like some other O-linemen. This O-lineman right here is really good. This Aaron Ursay from Ursary from Minnesota. He's a monster. But they also may want to go defensive tackle. And there's this 350-pound monster right here, Deion Walker.
He's underrated. He's not going to go 40. He's on the board as 42. Yeah. By the end of the combine, he'll be a top 20 pick. I mean, that dude is a freak. He's like 6'40", and he can move. He's going to get picked way higher.
These 3 or 4 guys right here are pretty good too. Oops. You got Harold Fannin, the tight end from Bowling Green, Landon Jackson.
That dude is like, does he have like over 100 catches? He's
really good. That tight. And then this is Kenneth Grant, who's Kenneth Grant is a monster. Kenneth Grant. 6'3", 340, massive.
I think that we were going to be going through draft possibilities at this point of the season. There's no way.
I'm just saying. So that's what you got. And if you want to go back into the trade offer and just say, okay, we'll take that. We don't want those guys. We'll trade back. Okay, so you trade back to 28. Let's see who's the best player at 28.
No more trades.
No more trades. But I'm just saying, you could get Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, who I think is a dominating interior player. This guy right here from Ole Miss, the receiver, is super special as well. Trey Harris, very special player. The defensive end from Arkansas right here, Landon Jackson, is like 275, 280, and he's a beast. He's like a TJ Watt. He's just a monster, a motor running, and you could still go Kenneth Grant if you wanted. You know what I'm saying? So it's like Harold Perkins, the linebacker from LSU, is a crazy run and hit linebacker. Barrett Carter from Clemson, great run. And then this tackle from LSU, Emory Jones, is a blue chip type tackle. So, there's there's options. My point is, we're not going to do this thing. That's it. I just wanted to kind of show people that,
ladies, you know what? That is just a small glimpse. You wait until we get closer, man. Yeah. You wait. Those days when we would sit at 49ers HQ right next to the actual draft room of the 49ers as they brought us, this is no joke, steak medallions and baked potatoes and we had the big TV, and I mean it was like
catered 5-star meal. Amazing.
Dude, come on. I mean,
we did draft. I don't know if people know this. John and I did the 49er draft coverage for years. And we were in the facility
right next
in the conference room across from the war room.
Yeah.
And this is all during I've been doing it since the Mike Nolan years. I've been doing it.
No, they have a window in there, and we would like go to the bathroom. We walk by, see we could see the draft board.
Do you remember you had to be escorted to and from the bathroom? Remember that? Escorted to and from the bathroom. So very secretive, very secretive.
But they let Peter King in there. Like Peter King sitting there. Come on.
Yeah,
Come on, man.
come on. You couldn't have had Krueger and Lund in there. I mean, we would have. We were on the home team. We were on the flagship, but Peter King gets in there.
Yeah, Peter King gets in there, gets to write a piece about it, but we don't.
That ain't right.
Come on, man. Let me see.
Okay, but this guy has the question right here, and the question is: do we pay Purdy? No, if we want to be competitive. So where are you on Purdy? Before you say anything, Johnny, let me just throw out a couple things here because I think this needs to be said. And this is on Purdy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been real critical of Purdy. I brought up last week that, last year, the top trio had 40 touchdowns. They have 2 this year. And so, yeah, we can talk about Purdy, but I mean, there's been obvious reasons why they're not as productive this year. And that's number one reason right there. But here you go. When the pocket has been kept clean this year, Brock Purdy ranks 6th in the NFL, 6th best quarterback in EPA per dropback, which is a stat that I kind of prefer. I kind of like EPA per dropback, and I think if you research the stat, you'll like it. It's a good quarterback stat. He's the 6th best quarterback in the league with a clean pocket. So that tells me that if you put a good offensive line around Brock Purdy, you have somebody that sits between, let's just say conservatively, 6 and 10 as far as quarterbacks in the league. And I really believe that to be the case. So then in this game against Miami, Purdy, when he had a clean pocket against the Dolphins this weekend, 22 for 29 for 269 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. That's a 76% completion percentage. Purdy went under pressure Sunday against the Dolphins, 4 of 11 for 44 yards, an interception, and 3 sacks. To me, it's a lot about the offensive line. The Niners, the one thing that they're going to have to move off of, and then when I'm saying I'm saying Shanahan and Forster, is this kind of internal belief that they need to spend higher picks on receivers and not higher picks on offensive linemen. Go invest in your offensive line. You're a play action pass, run the ball offense. Right now, your offensive line's so bad that Shanahan on 2nd and goal from the 4, which is an obvious run area, passed on 2nd and goal from the 4, 3rd and goal from the 4, and then kicked a field goal to close out the first half. I mean, that was the most pathetic series right there. You should have gone for it on 4th down, and you should have ran the ball the entire time. But he is coaching around his offensive line because he knows it's no good.
Yeah. It's their fault. Just for those who don't know, you just said a key point that's a philosophy of the 49ers under Kyle Shanahan, which is Chris Forster believes, their offensive line coach, that he can coach up anybody. So they don't spend high picks on offensive linemen. And while that as a philosophy is a lot of teams' philosophy, for the interior line, that's fine. Banks is a 2nd rounder, Brendel's a free agent, Pooney's a 3rd rounder. I mean, interior linemen, like you said, Zach Frazier is special. There's a few guys that, Linderbaum on Baltimore was a 1st-round pick, a center.
Outland Trophy winner.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain guys. Quentin Nelson was a high pick of the Colts out of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So there are certain guys that if they're really, really good, you're going to make the exception. But for the most part, interior offensive linemen you can find. You can find them in free agency. They're not too expensive. You can find them in the draft a little bit down the board. But tackles are different. And Trent Williams was the 4th overall pick when the Redskins were the Redskins. The elite tackles in this league are high picks. It's hard to just kind of hit on a tackle like, oh, my God, this guy just came out of nowhere. They've got to invest in a tackle in the 1st round because McKivitz isn't good enough. He's constantly giving up pressure. And then I don't know that Trent Williams is going to be back. I mean, if Trent Williams says to himself, this isn't a championship team, it's the only reason he's playing. He's not playing. He's got plenty of money. He doesn't need money anymore. I mean, sure, he wants money, but he doesn't need money. And so if he doesn't think he's going to play anymore and he's banged up, then Trent Williams could leave. It wasn't like we thought Joe Staley was going to leave and he left. But he was banged up that year. He just had enough, and it was it. It was over. So, if Trent doesn't play, who's playing tackle? Your tackles are probably, without Trent Williams, but Jalen Moore's a free agent too. So they have nothing on the offensive line. They don't have any They don't have any depth. So all of a sudden, that's where I thought they were going to go last year. I mean, they went Pearsall, and I don't have a problem with it. And I'll give Ricky Pearsall, the benefit of the doubt this year because of the strange year he had. But they've got to go the offensive line at some point early in this whole process. And then just let me go back to Brock because that was the question. We kind of got sidetracked on it. And you're going to have pressure in this league. It's just you got to deal with it. And I know that the interception he threw at the end, Calais Campbell, is in his face. I completely understand that. The problem with Brock is his biggest strength, his superhero strength, is not anything physical. It's mental. We all know that. So he makes the throw against the Rams on second down the right sideline, and Jennings is bracketed. Plus, Brock admitted after the game they didn't even see the throw. And you're 5 yards from a field goal right there. Ricky Pearsall's running out. You have the back in the middle of the field. Just hit one of those guys. You're in field goal range. You tie the game.
You had 3 guys underneath. They were all open, and they were giving you the underneath. They were playing deep. And then when I said it to Shanahan, I said, that's kind of extremely aggressive. And he's like, well, I kind of disagree. I don't think he's extremely aggressive. It's like, that was an extremely aggressive thing. It lost the season.
So it did. It lost the season, even as much as Debo dropping the one pass. But so that's a dumb decision by Brock. And then he comes back in the Miami game. That interception he threw late when they were down 22-17, it was 1st and 10. So Calais Campbell's coming in your face. I get it. And I realize what I just said. The rush is coming, and he just throws this lollipop. Now, I don't know that Jennings was probably supposed to cut that route a little tighter, that he kind of rounded that route off. And I understand that. And maybe that's why the ball was intercepted. The safety jumps in front of him. The game's over. But it was 1st and 10. You don't have to make that throw. There was a minute 52 in the game. If you're not sure, just eat that. It wouldn't have been the greatest thing, but you ended the game right there, and it was 1st down. That throw he made down the sideline against the Rams, it's 2nd down. Your superpower, if you're Brock,
take the check down. Right. Take the check down. When you're driving, keep driving. The pressure's on the defense. Take the check down. Possess the football. Absolutely. Put more emphasis in the possession of the football. They act like they need to score it's all tied. Like they get more points if they do a 3-play drive than a 13-play drive. No. It's better if you have a 13-play drive.
I just think his decision making, I think that he's tried to take on too much, and because of all the injuries, and I think he feels pressure to just do more. He's trying to get the ball. He's trying to get it out. He's trying to make great plays. He realizes too what we realize. We know the number with Kyle when he's behind in games. Brock is the same way. He's not a guy that's driven this team down the field a whole lot of times, and it's probably it's probably in the back of his head. But he needs to get back to Brock is a great decision maker. And when he was 17-3 in this first 20 games, he was an elite decision maker. And now he's 10-10 in his last 20, and that big superpower is away. And we know the touchdowns versus interceptions. I think Josh DeBow was the one who put that number out there. But in his last 20, he hasn't been that guy. And this year, I think he put too much pressure on himself to try to say, I'm going to put this team on my back and we'll win this thing. You don't have to do that. Just because McCaffrey's out, there was most of the season, there was a couple of backs that can handle it. Just because Ayuk was out, you had Kittle, you had, there was receivers that can make plays. He's got to get back to doing that, because that's the original question is, do you pay Brock? Well, the biggest question is, who are you going to get? If I'm Minnesota, and I know you and I have had this conversation, Sam Darnold isn't leaving the building. I don't care that I drafted J.J. McCarthy in the first round. He's going to have to sit like Aaron Rodgers. He's going to have to sit like Jordan Love. He's going to have to sit. I don't care. I mean, he's not getting paid very much. And so I don't know what Darnold's going to make. I mean, I was hearing from Schefter this morning. He was on McAfee. He was saying that he thinks Darnold's going to get 3 and 120. He thinks he's going to get 40 a year. Now, remember, Baker got 3 and 100. So saying that, so he gets 33 a year over 3 years, got 3 and 100. So it's not that far-fetched to say Darnold, who's having an MVP kind of a season, could get 3 and 120. Minnesota would be insane to let him leave the building, because if the Niners could get him, maybe they trade Brock. I mean, look at the draft order right now. The Raiders just blew their shot at number 2. So the Giants are number 1, but it's like, I'm not looking at the draft board right now, but like 4, 5, and 6 are all teams that need a quarterback. Would you trade Brock for a top 6 pick? I would, if I could get Sam Darnold, but Minnesota's not letting Sam Darnold go now. No way. No chance.
I mean, it's I don't see a real flexibility from this organization that would say, hey, they don't seem like riverboat gamblers, because that would be riverboat gambling. If you went away from Purdy right now, traded him, and brought in somebody else. I mean, who's done that? The only team I can think of that's done that was the Chargers when they had Rivers and Breeze. And they kind of made the wrong decision, right? Because they got rid of Breeze, who became one of the most prolific passers ever and won a Super Bowl, for Rivers, who never won a Super Bowl. And that Rivers was damn good. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I don't know. It's just
they let him walk. They let Drew Brees walk as a free agent because they thought he was hurt. Remember, and then Miami was going to get him, and then they flunked him on a physical or something because of the shoulder, and then he went to New Orleans and set all kind of records. So you're right, because if you just keep Brees, I think they took Rivers. There was that trade going on, but I think Rivers was
I thought there was a trade involving him in the pick that was Tomlinson, or did they just draft Tomlinson?
Because Michael Vick they had the number 1 pick, the Chargers.
Oh, that was it. Vick,
and it came up. They moved back to 5. They took Tomlinson, and then they took Breeze with the first pick of the second. How about that?
Yeah.
You got Tomlinson at 5, and you got Breeze with like the first or second pick of the second round.
That is a draft.
Then Breeze hurt his shoulder, and the Chargers said, heck with it. We're going to go with, they had drafted Rivers. I think he sat for a year. And then Miami was favored to get Breeze, but then they didn't like his shoulder, so New Orleans picked him up, and the rest is history. But the Chargers could have just picked somebody else at 7 and kept Breeze.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, it would take bowling balls to trade Brock Purdy and go. Because you would have to be going with like a Daniel Jones or a Sam Darnold or a Zach Wilson or a Mac Jones. I mean, that's what you're talking about. I mean, you're talking about reclamation project quarterback for cheap, and then it worked out with Baker this year. It's worked out with Darnold, but man, if that doesn't work out, you're kind of probably fired.
Yeah. There's no doubt. If I could somehow
that's a major swing,
because Darnold signed a 1-year, $10 million deal in Minnesota, but I don't care if they have to franchise him, whatever. There's no way after the season that he's had, that if you're Minnesota, that you're going to take a chance on JJ McCarthy. McCarthy will probably sit for a year or two, and then he'll start squawking, but he doesn't make that much. So they can afford to carry both guys, even if they pay Darnold like $40 million. Now there's going to be some teams who want JJ McCarthy, and I understand that. But I'm not. If I'm Minnesota, I can't let Darnold go after the season he's had. I heard today maybe the Raiders would be interested in Darnold, whatever. But if you're Minnesota, why would you let this guy go? I mean, he's such an asset now. I mean, you could franchise him and trade him in that kind of a situation.
13-2.
Yeah, you're not trading.
You'd be really dumb if you moved him. Okay, let's play a game here before we we'll talk a little bit about better. Let's play a game here. It's the Niners. They have 19 unrestricted free agents. I'll just say the name and you say stays or goes. Okay? Stays or goes.
Knowing that Brock needs a deal. That's going to be tough.
Here we go. Aaron Banks
goes.
I think goes. John Feliciano.
Yeah, he's gonna retire, I think, right?
I think so. I think he'll be gone. Ben Barch.
I think he'll probably stay. Yeah, he's not gonna make much money, so yeah, I think he'll stay.
I think he's gonna stay. How about Jalen Moore?
Gone.
Really? You think someone pays him?
He's been decent. I got to be honest. I hated when he used to come into games, but he's gotten better. But I don't think he's a starting left tackle in this league. I mean, he's a nice backup. He could probably be your swing tackle on either side, but he'd probably make more than they would want. If Trent leaves, though, I don't know that they'd have a choice. I think they'd have to probably pay him something if Trent left, just as a bridge for a year.
Continuity. You want continuity. I think he's coming into his own. I'd keep him. He's also healthy. Yep. Mooney Ward stays or goes.
I think he's gone.
Yeah, I think
he's going to make too much money. He's had a horrible year by his standards, especially given what last year. But you got to give him a break. I mean, these guys aren't robots that come out of a locker. I mean, he's had losing a daughter. I can't even imagine. 2-year-old daughter.
I was talking to him the other day in the locker room, and I'm like, "How you doing, man?" And he's like, "Yeah, doing all right." It's like you can kind of tell. It's like, he's just
24/7. I mean, I can't even imagine.
It's like from what he said about it, it's like it kind of comes and goes. It's like he feels good, and then something hits him wrong, and then all of a sudden he doesn't feel good. He wants to go home, and it's just, I don't know. He's just having a. I mean, come on. I mean, I have no idea. I have no idea how anybody could compartmentalize.
They made a choice, right? They made a choice. They just said, "Are we keeping Demo or are we keeping Mooney, man?" And they signed Demo, so they can't afford them both. Renardo Green's going to start at left corner next year. He has to.
Yeah, it's Mooney. I hate to say it, but I think you're right. I think Mooney knows it too. How about Josh Dobbs? Stays or goes?
Probably goes. He's probably pissed that he wasn't the backup this year. I would have liked to have seen him be the backup more than Allen. Brandon Allen doesn't do anything for me. So he'll probably find another home.
Yeah, no, I think he goes too. Greenlaw.
Oh, is that a tough one? It depends on what he wants, because clearly that Achilles, he's not over that. And, they want him back. I don't think there's any question they want him back, but, you can't just throw money around now with Brock going to get paid. They can't just throw money around. They've got to be judicious with the money. And the one thing about the 49ers before they go, oh, he's got to stay. He's got to stay. I understand that people are going to say that. You got to be healthy around here. Armstead's gone because of health. Jimmy, they got frustrated with Jimmy and they drafted Lance because Jimmy couldn't stay healthy. That's around here. That's a big deal. Availability is the best ability. And they have got, if you're not healthy and you're just eating space on this team, they're not going to keep you. And so they don't have anybody, though. That's the problem. Devondre Campbell is obviously gone. D Winters didn't show enough. Jalen Graham hasn't shown enough. So for this team, who I thought had a lot of young linebacker depth, all of a sudden, Flanagan fouls, he can't do it. So they've got to find a linebacker. I think if he is willing to play ball with them, then Dre Greenlaw will be back. But he is by no means a sure thing because they're not sure about his health.
Yeah. No, I think you sum that up. I'm going to say he's back, but you're right. It all is dependent on what's his expectation level. And there's going to be some teams out there that are going to pay him big money because they remember what he did and who he is. He is very, very special. There's a lot of good personnel people out there. They'll say, I want that guy here. I don't care how much he plays. I want that guy on our team. So Greenlaw, I hope they can get him signed. Kevin Givens, stays or goes?
Probably not. I think he's been better in his career. You were on Kevin Givens early in his career, and you knew it. And kid out of Penn State, I really like him, but I think he's undersized, and he just hasn't been very good this year.
Yeah, he's a one gap penetrator, which is fine. But
bigger boys inside who can push the pocket and keep the linebackers clean.
I think he's one of the reasons they've struggled against the run, to be honest. Brandon Allen, no, he goes, huh?
Yeah, I know Kyle likes him, so maybe he could be back, but they need to upgrade a backup quarterback.
I agree.
He's just a guy.
Flanagan fouls.
No, I know he's a good special teamer, and they might keep him because they like him. But when he's forced to play, I mean, just go back and look at the Super Bowl tape, man. And when Dre Greenlaw was in, they had Travis Kelce frustrated, screaming at Andy Reid, and then the minute he goes out between Oren Burks and Flanagan fouls, they had no clue. He
plays hard. He flies around. He can make some flashy plays, but you can't depend on him from scrimmage to make all the plays. And to me,
he's a special teamer.
He's a special teamer. He's a special teamer, but he's also an older guy who makes a little money, and you can find younger, cheaper guys. Isaac Yiadom, what do you think? I think he goes.
Yeah, everyone was really excited, and you went back and looked at his New Orleans tape, and you're like, I don't get it. And everybody was really, on him, and he hasn't been very good.
He's okay. But I mean, to me, they should have kept Sam Womack. Khalil Davis.
Yeah, they'll keep him. I mean, he's young,
okay.
Right? I mean, I think they'll keep him.
Chris Conley.
Yeah, he's a good special teamer. He's a good character guy too. You know him. I mean,
good dude. Eric Saubert.
Yeah, he's giving him nothing. They need a backup tight end so bad, and this is a deep tight end class coming out. So I really think. I mean, how many times have they tried it? I mean, Cam Latu and Braylon Willis, and I mean, they've just on through the years, they've tried to get somebody to get Kittle off the field a little bit, and they just can't find anybody. I mean,
I know, it's amazing.
Saubert had a touchdown on Sunday, and it was his second or third of his career in 8 years. I mean, I get it. You can block. You can find guys who can block everywhere. It's just they got to get something out of the tight end if George Kittle is hurt, or you got to get him off the field. They got to upgrade there, man. Yeah,
no question. He goes for that reason. I think you said it perfectly. Rock Ya-Sin.
Yeah, we haven't seen enough of him. They'll probably get somebody else in there. He's been all right, though. I mean, he's had to, but yeah, I thought he'd be a little bit better. 3 more here. Curtis Robinson, their Walter Payton Man of the Year award candidate. If he can come back from the knee, Greg swore that he was next up, and they really liked him. So yeah, he'll probably rehab and be back.
Yeah, no, he was having a great summer. I was so sad. How about Hufanga?
Yeah, that's the biggest one to me. I don't think you can lose Hufanga and Greenlaw in the same offseason. When they came back against the Rams early, and then, of course, Greenlaw had to go and all that, And again, Hufunga's one of those guys that he is hurt a lot. And so if he's going to ask for Xavier McKinney kind of money, $70 to $75 million, first, can they afford that with giving Brock all the money that they're going to give him? I really think they need to bring him back. I think they need to find a way, because Greenlaw and Hufunga, people don't realize it's not only what they do on the field, they just give an energy to the defense, the way that they fly around, and the defense is kind of dull without those guys. So I think they need to find a way to get him back there. Plus, having Jair Brown and Mustafa as your two safeties, I just don't trust that. They need a veteran in that secondary, because it's going to be Renardo Green and Lenore at the corners, and you get two young safeties back there. If you don't have Hufunga, that is a really young secondary that's going to make mistakes.
Yeah. Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah, I think he's gone. They've had problems with Elijah since the beginning. His agent's been a big pain in the ass, and he got hurt when he was a rookie and he didn't want to play, and they were at odds with him. And I'm not saying that he could have played this year. I'm just saying that he's been banged up so much, and that goes back again to the Niners. They really like the guy, but he just hasn't been healthy, so they're going to let him go. He gets hurt all the time. It's too bad.
All right. When the Niners get inside the low red zone, they can't run. They can't run inside the 5. They in the second quarter, they went 2nd and goal from the 4, pass, 3rd and goal from the 4, pass, 4th and goal from the 4, field goal, which was unbelievable. And I was sitting there cursing at my television set. You're not even in the playoffs. You're going absolutely nowhere, and you can't go for it in the fucking second quarter. I mean, unbelievable. If you can't go for it when there's no pressure, odds are you're not going to be able to go for it when there is pressure. But whatever. That aside,
preach, brother, preach.
Just when you can't run
30
in the red zone.
What you just said, just real quick, because I don't want to take you off your track. Kyle Shanahan is one of the best offensive minds in the game, and I don't want you to be Dan Campbell. I don't want you to be on that far end. I don't want you to do that. But my God, man, there's got to be a middle ground. Like, I know people don't realize that he's old school, his dad, old school, all that kind of stuff. He may not look at the analytics. One thing they have to do, fire the special teams coach, fire the defensive coordinator, bring in Robert Saleh, but also bring in some kind of an offensive mind like Mike McDaniel used to be, just at least to have somebody to bounce things off, somebody that Kyle respects. Because right now, it's just Kyle's way or the highway offensively, and he needs someone to bounce things off of. He needs somebody he can trust who can say, Kyle, I get it. You're conservative by nature, but the numbers say this, and they've got to find a middle ground on that. They just have to, because they're missing out. And as great of an offensive mind as he is, what are you afraid of? Like, Kyle borders on arrogance with his confidence in his offense and his play calling. So what is it that you don't think you can get a 4th and 1 or a 4th and 2 at a key point in the game? I do not get it. And especially given one guy you didn't ask me about, is Jake Moody going to be back? I'm not trying to crow because I hated him as a pick in the 3rd round, but I don't, it's not like you're getting 100% out of your kicker. What is he, 29th in field goal percentage this year? So wouldn't that make you go for it more than it would less when your kicker can't even hit a 41-yarder to keep you in the game?
I mean, there's times when you would swear they're playing for the field goal.
Right.
I mean, they just they act like they've got the most money kicker of all time, and then when he keeps missing, it's like it just puts more pressure because they took him in the 3rd round, and Lynch is like, he's going to be our kicker for a long time. Well, that's great, but it would be nice if he could be good in the short term. It's awesome that you're set long term there, but it's in the short term, he doesn't look that good. Okay. Couple things though. When you can't run inside the 5, it makes you wonder about 2 things: who you're running it with and who you're running it behind. There really is nobody else to in this equation. It's the runner and the lineman. So it's like Banks is a free agent. I think he's probably going to move on. Brendel, I think, needs to be upgraded. Pooney's been a nice player at right guard, but they're not getting any pop in the middle at all. But the more I look at their backs, obviously CMC's a hell of a back. He's hurt. But then Mason's a big back, but he doesn't have big back characteristics. He's got small back characteristics. He likes to bounce outside, and he's not the greatest short yardage runner for 235 pounds that I've ever seen. And then Guerrero, even though he's got huge, he's 220 plus and he's got great speed, he can't turn that speed into power. He doesn't seem like he always feels comfortable taking it up in there. He doesn't have great instincts, and he tends to fumble upon contact. So, I mean, they don't necessarily have a big back. And you look at like Detroit. I don't know if you saw this last game, but Detroit really struggled to punch it in with Jahmyr Gibbs. They were punching it in regularly with Montgomery. Montgomery's 220 pounds and has feel and also has some thump, and he can carry the pile and push the pile. Gibbs is more of a perimeter threat. He didn't look right. And I'm just thinking of some of the teams that can punch it in. Now you got Jacobs in Green Bay, and I don't know. It's like, do the 49ers on their list of needs, do they need a back that they can power it in, or do you view it all as they've got the backs and they just have to change out the line? Because it's one or the other or both. Which one is it, do you think?
I think Mason, like you said, I think he's got to be that kind of a back. But you know what's going to happen? We say the same thing. They need to give McCaffrey a blow. They have to give him less carries. Kyle can't help himself. I mean, he's addicted to Christian McCaffrey. It's just if he's around, he puts him in the game. And I don't buy this crap that it's like, well, it's hard to keep Christian off the field. How about this? Christian, you're off the field. I'm the coach. I mean, nobody else seems to have this problem. Nick Bosa goes out. They rotate the defensive line. Nick Bosa doesn't say I'm going to play all the time. I mean, it's like, look, you rotate backs. You're getting closer to 30. We signed you to a new deal. We're going to keep you fresh for as long as we can. We're going to put Mason in the game. He deserves it. And then as far as Guerrero, I hope that he can learn. He's made massive strides since the beginning of the season, but still, like you said, he doesn't always pick the right hole. He hasn't played running back a lot. For people don't realize it, he went to Wisconsin, was a receiver, then he went to Louisville. But yeah, I think that he could be a guy. It's just the interior of the offensive line outside of Purdy. Brendel's always on the ground this year. Brendel is always on the ground. Banks is too slow. They've got to find quicker but more powerful, big. I mean, look at the teams you're going to be competing with in the NFC for a long time. Philadelphia's got a great line. Detroit's got a great line. The Rams looked at the 49ers. They built a really nice offensive line. They were injured early in the season. That's why they struggled. I mean, I know they didn't have Puka Nacua. They didn't have Cup, but their offensive line was a mess. Once they got it together, they started bullying people again. So you're going to be dealing with this for a long time, and you've got to fix it. They can't run. They cannot run. I mean, even when Christian McCaffrey was back and he wasn't himself, I understand that. It was a big reason.
They can't ever run when they're expected to run.
No. Well, Krueg,
when was the last time you saw the 49ers run the game out on their opponent? They cannot run the game out, even if they're beating them. Even teams they beat, they can't run them off the field in the fourth.
No, the biggest problem is they can never stop the run, even when you know it's coming, and they can't run the ball. I mean, the contact, I haven't looked at it, but the contact where they're hit, it's got to be one of the worst in the league. They're constantly that way. And you talked about the red zone, offensively and defensively, that's been a big problem. But it's very rare that there's just this hole and you just burst right through it for the 49ers. Last year was different. McCaffrey was doing that all the time. But this year, you just haven't seen it. They've gotten pushed back, especially in the middle. Trent hasn't been around. They probably need 4 offensive linemen outside of Purdy. And you got to get ready for Trent Williams, because it would not shock me in the slightest if he just said, I'm good. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, he's at that age. I mean, there's no question about it. He could easily say, you know what? He's made a lot of money. He had some money accelerated into this year. Right. That also makes you wonder if his plan was to tuck tail at the end of the year.
Well, once you start talking about it,
but
right?
He also talks about wanting to play a long time. So
yeah,
that's another thing too. It's like hard to really know with Trent, because I do sense that he wants to play. But like, let's take a look at the team that really struggled last year, the Eagles, and look at them now. Yes, they added Saquon Barkley, but nobody's talking about the fact that they took Mekhi Becton away from the Jets, and Mekhi Becton was a failure with the Jets, but he's 6'7", he's 363 pounds. And they put him at right guard next to Lane Johnson. And now they've got between Lane Johnson at right tackle, Mekhi Becton at right guard, and Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata on the left side. These guys, I mean, Philly's got a road grading line even without Kelsey. They took Cam Jurgens in the second round in 2022. He stepped in for Kelsey. But, I mean, look at that Eagles line. Now, it's a lot of it's Barkley, but they have Gainwell as well, who's a free agent back who I really like. But, I mean, the Eagles' resurgence is about 2 things, in my opinion. It's about that offensive line and Vic Fangio. And, the Niners could have had both. They could have had an upgrade to their offensive line, but they chose to go with a receiver, and they could have had a Vic Fangio type defense. Should the Niners switch from the 4-3 wide 9 to a 3-4?
Yeah, I think they got to do something because the old Seattle system, people aren't running that anymore. And what's happening is you look at Mike McDonald in Seattle, and he doesn't have the players to do it yet. But more and more defenses are showing more, changing things up, doing all these things, confusing quarterbacks. They're not just saying, look, this is what we run. We just run it better than you. They've got to change up. I got to believe that Nick Sorensen's gone. I mean, you just mentioned it. Philadelphia had lots of problems last year, and a lot of them were, inside that place was messed up, and the mentality of the whole thing, just like the Niners are this year. But yeah, they go out and get Saquon Barkley. Look, that's a massive part of it. But they got a new offensive coordinator. They got a new defensive coordinator. They cleaned house, and look what they're doing. They have a whole new attitude. But you mentioned the offensive line. That's been great. Defensive line, they put a bunch of money in. Jalen Carter's turned into an absolute monster. They needed help in the secondary. They went after it twice. Quinyon Mitchell, that kid out of Toledo, I think it is, right, has been really, really good. Yeah. I mean, they did a great job, and this is what I'm talking about with all these teams in the NFC. They've drafted well over the last few years. Look at what Philly has done. You just mentioned Juergens, the kid out of Nebraska playing at center now. They knew Kelsey was going to go, and they had somebody ready to go in his place. Smart moves, but I mean, Howie Roseman is great, and they've done a great job on defense. They've completely turned that defense over. Remember, they had a bunch of older guys on that team, and Fletcher Cox is gone, and Brandon Graham's going to be gone. He's got an injury. This is his last year. They were ready, and they fortified the defensive line. They kept the offensive line intact. They had skill position guys. We know that. The receivers we talk about, they stole Saquon from the Giants, which they're a bunch of idiots. But they're doing it on the offensive and defensive line, and they're fortifying with the draft. Detroit, their draft, the Rams, mid rounds, the draft. I mean, the Niners have got to get back, and it's a nice rookie class this year. But like you said, whether you're going to keep that top 10 pick or whether you're going to turn it into more, because not only do you need to turn it into more and good players, but they got to get those numbers down. They're top heavy. That's what they're paying. They're paying top heavy money. And Hargrave, I think, is going to be gone. You mentioned it. I think that it's going to be a decision on Greenlaw. It's going to be a decision on Afunga. I think Banks is gone. I mean, they're going to have to make a lot of decisions because even though Brock's number, and this is kind of misrepresented, he's not going to go from 0 to 60 or 0 to 50 the first year. It'll probably be like 20, but still, that's a $20 million jump. He's making $1 million. His first year with, to be elongated, the bonus money and all that stuff over 6 or 7 years. So it'll probably be a $20 million cap hit, but they've always got to be mindful of that thing going up. So it's going to hurt them, and they're going to have to make decisions that they don't want to make, but that's the way it goes. But how do you fight that? You draft well. So those guys who are cheap are really giving you your money's worth until they have to be, until you have to pay them. But you've got to hit in the draft because you start looking at the NFC right now. It's a bunch of young, good talent. You mentioned the Packers, the Lions, the Rams, the Eagles. Look at their rosters. It's all recent good draft picks and deep.
It's the 49ers too. It's like, you mentioned Sorensen. The 49ers have the number 3 defense in football coming in yards wise. I mean, what a fraudulent stat that was, because they're also number 2 in the pass defense. And in this game, the Dolphins had the 26th rush offense, and they ran 30 times for 166 yards, 5.5 yards per carry. And Achane ran for 7 a carry and was going for 7 yards on first down multiple times in this game against this run D that supposedly I mean, I don't know what's happened to the 49er run D since the bye week. They can't stop the run. Obviously, Greenlaw being out this year has hurt their run D a lot, and then him coming back and barely playing in this game, that didn't help in this game. But they couldn't stop Achane at all, and they're a horrendous situational defense. So I don't know, if they're bringing him back or not, but it sounds like Bosa likes him, and Warner likes him. And they do have good stats. They seem to have played better in the second half of the year, but I mean, I don't know. I mean, that to me seems like I think they need a star defensive coordinator.
Yeah.
They need either a Robert Saleh. They need somebody where Shanahan can just be like, you're in control and there's no concerns. He needs, because when the offense is not on the field, Shanahan is deep in his play sheet. he's not. He's more of an offensive coordinator type. So he needs a defensive coordinator that's literally the head coach of his defense, so that when the defense is on the field, he literally could be back on the bench talking to the offense.
I think Robert Saleh makes so much sense. I mean, he's with LaFleur right now in Green Bay, and they're besties and best men at each other's weddings and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe Robert takes that Jets money and just kind of keeps doing what he's doing up in Green Bay. But, I mean, if you're the 49ers, you have to make him an offer he can't refuse. It makes way too much sense. Nick's in, I think, over his head because you can give me all the stats you want and all those kind of things. Here's what I know. When it's time to get a stop, how many times this year they needed a stop to get the ball back. They needed a stop to win a game. They needed to stop a run on short yardage to get the ball back. They never did it. They don't make plays. They didn't make plays. And the thing that drove me crazy about Sorensen was he just doesn't change it up enough. I know that he's going with a 4-man rush. I know he's not going to bring extra guys. Nick Bosa's out of the game. You've got to trick it up a little bit. They don't. They don't come with anything exotic ever. It's kind of like if Kyle was a defensive coordinator. They just play it by the book. They're very predictable defensively. I know what they're going to do. I just, back when Robert Saleh was there, all of a sudden K'Wan Williams is coming off the edge and Fred Warner's coming up the middle. And there's, I'm not saying the blitz is everything. It's not. But certain things that you time up or trick up or, zone type things. I mean, Vita Vea, the other, against Dallas yesterday is out there. They bring him outside and he makes a tackle that prevents a first down. Now Baker threw an interception on the next possession, so they didn't win the game. But, you've got to change some things up. And I just thought they were so vanilla on defense, especially without Nick. And when Nick would miss a game, it was like, okay, Leonard Floyd was better. There's no question, but you're not getting any push. You can't just go with a 4-man rush there. You've got to change some things up based on your personnel. I just didn't see it enough. And then as far as Brian Schneider is concerned, when they have that string of really bad special teams, you've got to send a message. You got to wake your team up. He had to be fired. That was another thing during the season. It was like, look, I know that you're close to them. I know, but sometimes when you're spiraling out of control, you can't fire your players. You can't let your special teams get away with that. And he's the head of the special teams. Whether it's fair or not, you got to shake something up. Schneider can't be back. I don't think Sorensen can be back. Robert Saleh is sitting out there. Your most successful defense you've ever had under Kyle is Robert Saleh. Was so good, he got the head coaching job of the Jets. Like you mentioned, the Eagles changed some things up in the offseason. You can't fire all the players. I mean, what are you going to do? Just come back status quo and just say that the injuries and the weirdness of the season got us? That's not acceptable.
No. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly. I don't love some of the answers. I mean, give you an example. The last play against the Rams when they found the player open down the seam and the Niners were slow to rotate and they basically lost the game. The Rams clinched the game on this play. And when Sorensen was asked about it, he's like, just a minute, miscommunication. It's like, just to just slough it off as just a miscommunication is fine on the third play of the game that went for 9 yards. It's kind of not an okay thing to say when that was the play that ended the game and subsequently your fucking season. You know what I'm saying? Yep. It's like you can't, it's not a coverall. It's not like, hey, Mike Singletary back in the day where, hey man, just got to watch the film. It's like, that's a coverall. And it's like, it was a miscommunication. That's not like an answer. That's like, why did you have a miscommunication on the key play of the game with the game on the line? I mean, and what was the miscommunication and whose fault was the miscommunication and who, none of it. Just like, hey, it's a miscommunication. Just like, oh, stop asking me questions so I can go back to, coaching my guys. It's like, whatever. All I know is this: Devin Achane had 191 yards from scrimmage and on 23 touches and 89 rushing yards after contact. The tackling of this defense is shitty.
See, you hit it right on the head. I mean, there's been breakdowns, there's been missed tackles. Amazing. They had one game where they had the most missed tackles in the league this year. There's just so many things defensively, and the numbers don't tell the story. All you have to do is watch the game. And they just didn't make the key plays. They didn't have the key stops. There was all these kind of things that happened. And, Nick Sorensen is fine if you're the Arizona Cardinals or if you're a rebuilding team, if you're the Tennessee Titans, that's fine. Let him grow into the position. But as you know, because you're down there all the time, and I certainly felt it, there's a tension down there at 49ers HQ. There's a desperation to want to win a Super Bowl. Kyle believes that they should have won a couple already. And as the team gets older, the pressure mounts. And so I really think that's one of the reasons beyond the injuries and the weirdness of the season that they've been so bad down the stretch. Because when you have an expectation level and then it gets taken away, it's been clear all season long, right? You know, when a team is going to do something, you just have that feel. Like last year, you just had the feel. Things were all going right. You feel the same way as a fan when things are going wrong. You tried to deny it. Ayuk holds out, we're fine. You know, Trent Williams, oh, we're fine. Ricky Pearsall get shot, we're fine. Like we all knew when all this stuff started going. We know how seasons go. We've been fans forever. It's not like you have to be the smartest guy in the room. It wasn't their year. And so when they started to realize that a long time ago before they got eliminated, I just think they lost their mental focus. And a lot of these guys, that's why you're blowing plays at the end of the game. You're just not seeing the intensity that you normally see out of this team, the focus that you normally see out of this team, because they knew like this ain't our year. It's just not. Just like last year, you felt the magic of a great year. You feel it all the time. You know when it's going to be, and you know early when it's not, because things are just off the tracks. And we all just sat there going, they can overcome it. They can overcome it. They can overcome it. And then injury after injury and injury after injury and weirdness after weirdness and Devondre Campbell and all these weird. And it's like, look, it isn't their year. It just isn't. And so I think they lost a lot of focus because
better. You lose a little bit of your belief.
That's it. And so that's all it takes. Because the line is so thin that if you're not locked, you're going to get embarrassed. And how many times this year have they? And it just seems to me that they lost their edge because they thought to themselves, it's just not our year. Another injury. And look, they're professionals. I get it. But it's as much mental as it is physical, and even more so. You got to believe. And I know these guys after a while just didn't. They just knew it wasn't their year.
Some great video we got to show here. Let's hit a couple of these. This is from Coach Yak's Twitter. This is Shanahan's reaction after Moody misses. Look at this. Look at this.
21. 3 for 3 in the Super Bowl. We saw him in February, Tony. Second-year player this time. No good. I think the crowd just heard that they're still have a shot at the playoffs. They're starting to feel the chance for Miami. Big miss right there.
Watch when they show Kyle.
Dolphins stay up by 6.
You can only keep your cool for so long, right? You can only keep your cool for so long.
That is good. That's good stuff. How much do those things cost?
Yeah. You got one of those things. What are they? Yeah. I mean, they buy the NFL, maybe $500.
I think they probably got a deal on them, so they're probably all right. Oh, that one right there.
All season long, and I think that they knew before the game they were out of it, but I think he's frustrated because while Robbie Gould didn't have the biggest leg, he knew inside of 53, Robbie was making the kick, and he kind of relies on those things. And Jake, okay, his rookie year, okay, the wins in different stadiums, you got to play in different stadiums. It's just a bunch of crap. And we see this all the time with kickers, and this is why I didn't want to draft one in the 3rd round, which look, bottom line is Kyle came right in the room, speaking of draft rooms, and said, I wanted a running back. And John Lynch kind of laughed about it. And then I had said on the broadcast right when they drafted him, no, I just don't like it. And you're seeing like Chad Ryland was drafted after him. Now he's in Arizona. He hit a 58-yarder. To force that game into overtime against Carolina. Sometimes it takes a couple of stops before the guys gain their confidence. Jake Moody he doesn't have confidence. And kickers are weird. It's totally mental with a kicker. I mean, he's not a bad kicker. He's got a big leg, all that kind of stuff, but he just misses so many routine field goals where like the Super Bowl last year was great. Hit a couple of 50-yarders, all that stuff. And then this, it's 16-10, you're out of the playoffs. How do you miss that kick? Like there's very little pressure on you to make that kick. You're already out of it. Just make the kick. What's the big deal? It's your job.
I mean, not only that, you so then he gets hurt and you go to 2 replacement kickers who go 8 for 8. Yeah. And then you go back to this guy and he's wet in the bed. All right. I want to show one more here. This is really good. I mean, not really good. This is really bad. This is the one play from Sunday that has me questioning Brock Purdy. And I am a huge Brock Purdy fan. But this play is horrible. And it goes against what I believe Brock to be, which is a really smart, good decision maker.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he doesn't make a good decision here. And to me, this is worrisome. And I have this angle because it's a great angle. Look at this. This is an incredible angle. Here we go.
Going for Debo. Miscommunication on the left side of the line. You got 6-7 blockers.
Quick enough to get away. Quick enough to get away from that guy. Just run out of bounds.
Let one come free.
But no, back in the middle, floating to Debo.
Fortunate to have a guy like Brock Purdy get out of trouble here. Because
I mean, that's great. That's great. That's great. Just run. Just get it. Run out of bounds. Nope. Pivot. Back in the middle. High. Defenders everywhere. Easily could have been picked.
6-7 blockers.
I mean, it's like, look.
You've only got 4 rushers.
Just run.
Let one come free. That
should not happen. Yeah, that should not happen.
And you couple that with the interception to end the game, and it's just that's what I mean about
decision making. It's like if he's not a good decision maker, he's not the same player.
No,
that's the problem.
No, his superpower was his decision making. It was his anticipation. It was his quick scans, over the defense. He's holding the ball too much. He's trying to make hero plays. The defenses clearly have adjusted on him, the in-breaking routes, all those kind of things. They have studied him. And so it's like a hitter in baseball. That's the easiest comparison is you come up, you hit really well, you adjust, they adjust, you adjust, they adjust, and all of a sudden you are who you are. What are you? And right now, that's where I think fans are coming in and going, God, are we going to pay this guy $50 or $60 million? Because he's clearly got to have guys around him. Now, look, everybody's got to have guys around him, maybe outside of Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Mahomes. But you're not always going to have the type of talent that he has around him. Even without Christian McCaffrey, and even without Brandon Ayuk, the 49ers' weapons were good enough to win games this year. George Kittle's going to go to the Hall of Fame. Debo Samuel did not have a good year. Ricky Pearsall's a first-round pick, and he had major problems. But Jawan Jennings is clearly a great wide receiver. They had enough. Jordan Mason at one point early in the season was second in the NFL in rushing. The cupboard was not completely bare, but I think he just tried to do too much. I think you hit it right in the head. When he was a rookie or in his second year, he would have ran out of bounds on that play. The last interception that he threw on a first down 22-17 with 1:52. You got plenty of time. You don't have to drive that ball down the field with Calais Campbell right in your face there. He's just trying to do too much. He thinks it's all on his shoulders, which I understand. But like you said, the greatness of Brock was he wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't losing the game. He wasn't a reason why they lost games. And now he is.
He had his dial of risk reward set perfectly. And now it's askew because of all the things that are going on around him. I'm going to share the screen, by the way, on this one. This is 49er offensive line pressures allowed against the Dolphins. Jake Brendel, 4 and 1 sack allowed. His first sack allowed all year, by the way. That's shocking. Colton McKivitz, 3. The Niners, Brock was pressured 16 times. McKivitz and Brendel gave up 7 of the 16. So, I mean, McKivitz is a good swing backup player who's great. The great part about McKivitz is he's a hardworking guy and he can play all 5 line spots. That's what he belongs. On a championship team, he's a backup lineman that plays all 5 line spots, and he's a damn good one. He's kind of the Niners version of Nick Allegretti, let's say. But you know what? He's not your starting right tackle on a championship team. And I don't think Brendel's a starting center on a championship team. So that's one area where I think they really need to upgrade is the offensive line. But in those 2 spots especially, I think definitely come to mind. The other one that I wanted to let you get your thoughts on, Johnny, is Richard Sherman, who I love Richard Sherman. He's been fantastic. And he is advocating that the 49ers bring back a popular 49er. I don't know if you saw this, but this is kind of interesting from Richard Sherman. Let's listen and we'll react to, as Gary used to say, Dick Sherman.
And on the opposite side, the San Francisco 49ers defense had no sacks. And that's another concern because Tua Tagovailoa is one of the quarterbacks that gets the ball out quick because of his concussion issues, because of the things that he's had to deal with. But you got to find a way to get home. When receivers are covered up, you got to find a way to get turnovers. You got to find a way to impact this game. And there's no sacks, no turnovers in this game. That's a point of concern. But I think they got the right pieces in place. Obviously, got to get Greenlaw healthier, him and Fred. You might have to find another pass rusher in free agency. I know, obviously, Javon Hargrave is a guy they paid a lot of money who hasn't been able to play. Injury took him out of the lineup, but that's somewhere else you're going to have to address further after the offensive line, because there has been a lot of investment in defensive line. Again, Eric Armstead was a big deal, guys. He was. Doesn't always show up on the stat sheet, and sure, he missed some games, but when he's in there, he makes an incredible impact on and off the stat sheet, and you're missing that. DeForest Buckner got traded away a couple years ago. I'm sure they'll look to maybe have a conversation with the Indianapolis Colts and see if they can bring him home. Perhaps that'd be a good move to make. But right now, this team is playing for pride, get through the end of the year healthy. There's not a lot of positives that come out of this game, only scoring 17 points. Kicker misses another kick. I think that's going to be a position they have to address. I think it should be Jake Moody should not be going in feeling comfortable about his job next season. I think there needs to be a competition all offseason long. There should not be comfort at the kicker spot. He did not play well enough, regardless of draft position. You have to bring kickers in here because that is a position where guys are a lot more efficient and reliable than he has been this season.
All right. A little bit there, but he wants them to go back to Buckner. I don't think, as much as I know that makes people comforted because they liked Buckner, I think that's the wrong plan. I think the 49ers need to get away from this star mentality of big name guys and roll up their sleeves and find the next Greenlaw, the next Fred Warner, the next Aziz, the next Buckner. They're out there. And, the true value is in finding them in the draft. So I know it's attractive to say, oh, go get Buckner. And I know that will be very popular with some Niner fans, but I just don't think that going after one big name old guy is really what they need. They really need to get as high a pick as they can in this draft, trade back into the 20s, collect a bunch of picks and hit on them. I mean, if they do that, they could be standing with the Lions and Vikings and Packers and Chiefs and Texans and some of the best young teams in the game in the not that distant future. But they need a quick reset that includes volume of draft choices, in my opinion.
They're kind of like the Warriors in that they're getting older and they've got to find pieces that can contribute right now. And I agree with you 100%. Buckner's not coming back here, and Armstead's banged up in Jacksonville. And so, those are great memories and all that kind of stuff. But like you said, I hate to sound like a broken record, but if you look at the NFC, the Eagles, the Lions, the Packers, they have all done, the Rams have done this through great drafting and deep drafting, not just the first round. You look at what the Rams have built along that defensive line, all along that defensive line. Jared Verse is absolutely great. Turner is great. Young is great. I mean, they did that in mid rounds. I know Verse was a first rounder, but they've rebuilt that entire defensive line. Aaron Donald left. Does anyone talk about Aaron Donald anymore? I mean, normally you'd be talking about Aaron Donald might be the best defensive tackle of all time. He's certainly in the conversation. And yet it's like they didn't miss a beat because they did such a good job replenishing that defensive line. The Niners need to do that on both lines. I don't know how they do it in one off season, especially in an off season that they're going to spend so much money on Brock Purdy. But like you said, they need interior defensive linemen. What they did to replace Armstead, in theory, was a good idea, but they didn't do it. Hargrave hasn't been near what he was as an Eagle. He reworked his contract, so he's easier to let go. It's going to be a trying offseason because Hufanga and Greenlaw are guys that you want to bring back. You got to fortify your defensive line somehow. You've got to figure out your offensive line, because a lot of people, when we were talking about Brock and his struggles and his decision making, were like, the offensive line. We get it. But in the NFL, here's the thing. You're not always from a clean pocket. A lot of times you're not from a clean pocket. And so what you've got to do is, a lot of times a play is drawn up a certain way. It's kind of like life. It ain't going the way you think. Like you wake up in a morning and you think, this is how my day is going to go. How often does your day go like that? The 100% way that you planned it out. How about never? Well, that's the NFL. When you hike that football, all of a sudden it was like you thought those guys were coming. They're not. This guy's moving over here in 2.1 seconds with 300-pound men trying to rip your head off. You have to make a decision. I'm not saying it's easy, and the offensive line hasn't helped them, but that's the game, man. Watch it every single week. It happens to every quarterback. Clean pocket, lots of quarterbacks can do that. When it gets muddy, that's the difference. And if you're going to pay a guy $50 million, he better be able to work with a muddy pocket. That's not too much to ask. It's got to
No.
be better. Don't get me wrong, but things are not going to be perfect. That's not how it
No.
works.
It's going to be a very interesting offseason for sure. Couple last thoughts before we call it quits. Pacers beat the Warriors tonight 111-105. Schroeder's having a hard time kind of blending with Steph. It's like taking the ball out of Steph's hands and having him play off the ball is it's challenging. Steph had a rough night tonight, 2 of 13 from the field, 2 of 9 from 3. He wound up with 10, 5 boards, 7 assists. Schroeder shot 3 of 9. He wound up with 9. So it's like you got these two scorers and they can't seem like they can get it going. Warriors lose this game by 6, 26 off the bench for Kuminga, who also had 8 rebounds and 4 assists. Sounds like Kerr is getting ready to part ways with Kuminga. Just seems like he's complaining about Kuminga, and Kuminga, I think, has already complained about Kerr publicly. What do you see? Golden State's picked up Schroeder. There's rumors they're interested in Jimmy Butler, Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, possible center trades, Vucevic, Valanciunas. I mean, they're heavily rumored to be in the trade market. Give me your thoughts on Golden State. They got off to a 12-3 start. They're 15-13.
They're the same as they've always been. I mean, not always, but over the last few years, here they are sitting, right where the lottery is and the play-in is, and the Lakers are sitting right next to them, and Phoenix is right there. And these older teams, especially in the Western Conference, San Antonio could catch them with the way that Victor Wembanyama is playing right now. They've got to decide. They've got to make a decision. And maybe Joe Lacob doesn't think this way, but the other day it came out that the Golden State Warriors valuation is $9.1 billion when they bought him for $450 million. Joe Lacob could never repay Steph Curry for what he's done. They're number 1 in the NBA. They're ahead of the Lakers. They're ahead of the Knicks. It's the team that Curry built. He built that arena in San Francisco. He built Chase. So if you're Joe Lacob, I think maybe there's no connection here. Maybe he doesn't look at it like this. Steph Curry did everything for this franchise. It was in the toilet. And you bought it for $450 million, and now it's worth $9.1 billion, and you have this nice, beautiful Chase Center in San Francisco. That's all because of Steph. Without him, it doesn't happen. So if I'm Joe Lacob, I owe Steph everything. So if it's Kuminga that's got to go, it's Kuminga that's got to go. I don't like Ingram. He's not going to be a number. I need a true guy who's in the prime of his career who can help me now and then bridge me to the next. That's what the Lakers did for so many years. They got Shaq. They got Kobe. It was like, the San Antonio extended theirs by getting Kawhi. They've got to find that guy. And I know everybody's going to disagree with me on this, but the only guy on that list that you mentioned that can do that is Zion Williamson. Now, he's hurt all the time. Absolutely. But you know what? When you get with a good organization, and you know this, he'll go from 290 to 260. He'll all of a sudden be healthy. He'll play. He's 24 years old, and he could lead the league in scoring. He could be a double-digit rebounder. It's a massive, massive swing. But he's the only one with true star power. Ingram's nice, but he kind of blends in. Any of those centers that you mentioned, they're okay. But he's the only one with star power. And if I'm Joe Lacob, I have to get Steph Curry help. And the other thing, this because you're behind the scenes, and this is what's great about this forum. I'm not going to go off and say weird stuff or take personal shots at anybody, but we can say this now. Jonathan Kuminga is a pain in the ass to coach. People know that, right? I mean, he does not get along with the coaching staff. He is not easy to coach. He's arrogant. He hasn't accomplished anything. And the coaching staff is trying their best to coach him. They don't. I'm not going to go so far as to say they don't like Jonathan Kuminga. He's a good kid, but he's a problem. And so it wouldn't surprise me in the slightest that he would be moved. And then the weird thing this weekend where Steve Kerr called those guys out, and then Podziemski says, I'm shooting the ball, I'll do whatever. And then he had to have an apology. That was after a win. I mean, there's something going on between the young guys, the old guys. There's something going on behind the scenes that at some point, let's say Kuminga gets moved for somebody, it's going to come out. But it just seems like there's an old guy, young guy dynamic that isn't quite working right now.
One last thought before we get out of here. And I think you summarized that really nicely. One last thought on the Giants. And the Giants are, let's be honest about things. They're they're a fucking bore. They're really boring.
Talk about surmising something perfectly. That is, you said it in 3 words. They're
They're fucking
bore.
yeah, they're a fucking bore. I mean, they're just a boring. They're a boring team. Their press conferences are boring. Their executives are boring. Listening to Melvin talk is boring. They're just boring. They have boring players, and it's a boring thing, right? It's bad. I mean, I'm not trying to, hate on them or anything. It's just boring. I'm bored by it. People say, why don't you use your channel and talk more about the Giants? Because they bore me. And the Dodgers just won the World Series, and the Dodgers keep getting better and better and better, and more exciting and more dynamic. And now they've got the Giants' best pitcher, and it's just it's kind of I do see a crack here, Johnny, for the Giants to kind of be less of a bore and to actually kind of maybe do something that winds up being really kind of exciting. And here it is. They're debating right now whether or not, it sounds like, to pay Corbin Burns Strasburg $245 million contract, right? And I don't necessarily think that would be a wise move, despite the fact that he's a great ace and he's went to St. Mary's, and I think he's durable. And I mean, for the next 3 years, he'll be great. But, I don't know if I want to go 8 years on Corbin Burns and $245 million. It's the years, 8-year deal. It's just a lot for a pitcher. But in this one scenario, I kind of think it's pretty interesting from the standpoint of the Giants are also really hot to trot on the trail of this Japanese pitcher phenom Roki Sasaki.
Yeah.
And Sasaki is way better than Burns, I think. I mean, I think Sasaki looks like just the best pitcher I've seen coming out of Japan. Maybe the best pitcher I've seen coming out of Japan. I mean, he's really, really good. He's totally dominating. I think he's probably better than Yamamoto. And Yamamoto was great and got whatever year. Didn't he get like a 12-year deal or something?
325, I think is what he got.
But here's the deal on the Sasaki thing. It's all about making him want to come here. It's not about what they're paying him, because what they can pay him is peanuts compared to what his second contract's going to be. So it's all about, where does he want to live? What team does he want to be on? What environment does he want to be in? What kind of team does he want to be on? I just think that this is an opportunity, John, for the Giants to sign Corbin Burns, overpay in the process. We'll all admit it's a dramatic overpay. But that could, if you could get Sasaki to sign with you because you have Burns and Webb, and you know what I mean? And then there's not so much pressure on him. Maybe that would make him want to come to the Giants over the Dodgers and compete against Yamamoto and Ohtani, as opposed to joining Yamamoto and Ohtani. I think it's better for baseball, like way, 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 way better for baseball. If it comes down to the Giants, Dodgers, or Padres for Sasaki, I think it's way better for baseball if he comes to the Giants. Obviously, I'm biased, but the Giants are an iconic franchise. The rivalry is dormant right now because the Dodgers are so dominant. But if you could juice it up by putting Sasaki, a dominant Japanese phenom, in San Francisco opposite Yamamoto and Ohtani with a Corbin Burns, now we're talking. Now I'm not saying you're beating the Dodgers, but at least it's interesting. At least I'm watching it.
Yeah.
I still would love to see him go for the polar bear or, somebody like that, a hitter. But man, the idea of getting Burns, and by getting Burns, you attract Sasaki to choose you over the Padres or Dodgers because he feels like you're more relevant or more whatever, because you just spent all this money on Burns. I don't know. If you could turn a Burns pursuit into Sasaki, I'm willing to go after Burns at that gigantic number.
Yeah. If you could, and Suzuki's not about money because he jumped over here early like Otani did. So
Right.
you're using your international money to get him. So he's not going to be a cost prohibitive kind of a player. He'll make money on his second deal like Otani did. And then after that, he's got a ton of endorsements in Japan. He just wants to go against the best. So Suzuki is literally going to make his decision with it's not going to be about the money. And like you said, everybody seems to be in on it. The Padres, the Mariners have a obviously a rich history with Japanese players with Ichiro, and they had that closer Sasaki up there, so they could do it. The Padres have Yu Darvish on their team. I think one of the things that could help the Giants, because not to go through this whole thing with their lineup, but essentially they lack, I think, and I know Yaz is going to come back probably, but a right fielder and a first baseman. That's really because it looks like they're set at second, short, third, catcher, left field Ramos, center field Jung-Hoo Lee. Right field and first base is where they could upgrade. The reason why I'm bringing that up is Seiya Suzuki is supposedly on the block with the Cubs. He was injured last year, but still had over 20 home runs, knocked in 70 runs. I really like him. He's a good defensive right fielder. He'd be an upgrade over Yaz, who could then be a fourth outfielder, and it wouldn't be a problem. And he could play anywhere in the outfield. But Seiya Suzuki is a Japanese player. Now, I don't know what kind of relationship he has with Sasaki, but now because Japanese players are so prevalent, I do wonder if the Dodgers have a couple, obviously, and the Padres have Darvish, and the Cubs, who are supposedly in it, have Suzuki. I wonder if he'll come over to a team and it's a factor of whether there's a player that can kind of show him the ropes and have a comfort level, and they've already got an interpreter there and all those kind of things. The Cubs also have Imanaga, the pitcher that came over from Japan. So, they got a couple of guys. The Dodgers, I don't know this for a fact. I'm just kind of wondering if he would feel more comfortable like that. If you could get a Seiya Suzuki, he could play right, which would help you anyway, and maybe help ease Roki Sasaki into it. Because if you think about getting Burns, Suzuki's your third, Ray is your four, and then whether it's Harrison or Birdsong is your five, you could even trade one of those other guys and get a short-term first baseman until your big guy is ready. I mean, to me, that's the best of all worlds, because I don't want to see Lamont Wade Jr. up there. Hey, getting on base is great, man, but first base is a power position. Can you get somebody? Can you trade one of those young pitchers? Because if you could get Sasaki, you just replaced him. He's 23, and he's not.
To me, you know the way the Giants fans buy these hats and everything. Why not? If you got Alonso, he'd pay for himself in polar bear hats.
It would be the new panda hat. I mean, it would just.
Oh yeah, you kidding me? You know how many people are walking around saying, "Get me a polar bear hat"? That guy would pay for himself.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I'd love to get him right-handed power in this park. It's one thing if you're hitting left-handed. I know Bonds did it, but we all know the story there. But if you get right-handed power in this ballpark, you can hit it out to left. I'm not saying you won't have a few taken away from you, but you can hit the ball out to left. It's not nearly as daunting. I would love to get Pete Alonso. I don't know what they're thinking as far as where they need to keep their number, because the
Yankees are out. The Yankees are out. We assume the Mets are in, but I don't know. I mean, it seems like Pete Alonso's market is not quite what it could be, and I just think that Alonso is the kind of guy that a lot of people are like, oh, his contract can be a nightmare. But I don't know. I don't know what he's going to get exactly.
Because I will give him this.
He's fun to watch. I'll say this: if he's on the Giants, I'm much more likely to watch.
Oh yeah. Well, and here's the thing too. Just first baseman just went off the board very quickly. I know a lot of people were mad. Giants fans were mad they didn't get Goldschmidt. I'm okay with that. I mean, he looked terrible last year. Maybe he bounces back in New York, but I just don't. I don't want to see Lamont Wade Jr. again. I can't do that. So. If you could get Sasaki, I don't know if they could sign everybody. Could they sign Burns? Sasaki's not going to be about money, but could they sign Burns and the shortstop and
probably not
go after Pete Alonso? I mean, that's Dodger.
Probably Burns or Alonso,
right,
but not both. It's probably Burns. I mean, I would love it if they could go Burns and Sasaki, and then I'll tell you the other one. If they didn't go Burns, the team that to me would be a good partner. I'm reading the Padres want to. Shed payroll. They have Luis Arise. The Giants have all these strikeout bats. Arise is a great contact hitter. He can play first. They also have who's the other guy they have that's got the big contract, who can play first and second.
Oh, Cronenworth.
Yeah. I mean, how about this? How about take Cronenworth and some of that bad money off their hands, put him as a part-timer at first base, and have them give you Dylan Cease for for having taken Cronenworth. I mean,
Yeah.
Cronenworth's owed like $70 million over the next, whatever. What if you took that 70 million or 50 of it off their plate and said, give us a good deal on Cease. We'll give you a prospect deal, but not a favorable deal to us because we're taking on all that money. I mean, that's where if I was the Giants, I'd try to use my financial weight because the Giants mint money. It's like the one thing they have is money.
Yeah.
So if you can use money to make a deal, I would do it.
Well, I think do something like that because the thing is that the reason why I'm very skeptical on Burns is because, like you said, even though Farhan is out, the same people pulling the purse strings are there. So they got Adames. Buster, it's like, early in your tenure when you work somewhere, you can get a bunch of stuff, and then after a while you get nothing. Right. So he went in there very quick. I need money for Adames. Okay, they said yes. You keep coming back. Hey, I need money for Burns. And I just, they won't go over a certain amount. Some of that was Farhan, but some of that was also the guys pulling the purse strings because they got burned on Zito. I know he helped them win a World Series. They got burned on Zito. They got burned on Matt Cain. They don't want to give out long term. That's the way the league is now. If you won't do that, then I don't know how you're going to get veteran pitchers, but they just don't seem to want to do that. They want to do these bargain basement type 1-2 year deals. I'm shocked they didn't get Walker Buehler. Now he got $21 million from the Red Sox. They weren't going to do that over 1 year.
Was that today?
Yeah. I thought Walker Buehler was for sure going to the Giants. That's the kind of rehab guy that signs a 1 year deal. I just thought he was coming here, but $21 million.
I thought so too.
When he's coming back, I know he got the final out of the World Series, but the Giants weren't going to give him $21 million. But do you see what I'm saying? Those are the type of guys where the rehab guys, where like Farhan would call all his buddies. Do you see what I did with Kevin Gausman? That kind of stuff. They used to be like, I got him for cheap. That's their currency. Anybody can sign, a guy for a bunch of money, but Farhan seemed to get off on rehabbing guys and then just letting them go because he's bored. He's like, I'm not going to sign him for long term, but look what I got him off the trash sheet for nothing. You're just like, ugh.
That's a good Farhan. Once again, this happened tonight, by the way. I had the fantasy, me and Kev have the fantasy semis.
Nice.
And we had Green Bay. And look what Green Bay's defense. Green Bay's defense gave me a fat 17. We were down 11 points going to the final.
Got some Josh Allen on that team. And man,
Josh Allen, Malik Neighbors, T. Higgins, Tony Pollard, Brian Robinson, Sam Laporta, Brian Thomas Jr., Chris Boswell, Packers, Jordan Addison. Our first pick in this draft, by the way, we had the first pick in the draft. We took McCaffrey.
Really?
We took McCaffrey. And we're in the championship game.
How many teams did he take? Look at you, man. You took McCaffrey and you still are in the championship. I
took McCaffrey and I'm still in the championship, and we went 11-4. It was an amazing year. All right. I shouldn't be showing my fantasy team. Kev's gonna get mad at me. All right, a couple more supers and we're out. We got this one from Don't. We got that one. We already played that one. We got this one. We got that one. Anthony Merkovich. He says, Larry, don't worry. They will blow it till the 4th round. Thank you. Thomas Messina. I heard Jake Brendel's Toyota engine seized after 15 miles. It makes sense. Oh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's
if I'm Brock, I'm taking those back. It's like,
seriously.
Got me killed. Give them back. Bring those back.
Or maybe a couple of the guys who got Sequoias, you downgrade them to Tundras.
Exactly.
Hey, Jake, there's a problem with your Sequoia. Can you bring it back to the dealership? Oh, you know what? Brock said that you're more of a Tundra guy.
Yeah, 1976 Tundra. I mean,
Jesus M says, Quinshon Judkins, Ohio State running back. We love Judkins. He's the Ole Miss transfer. He's real. Fuji Simeon says, Roki will go wherever the Japanese food is good. Well, I'm sure it's good here. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, apparently Teoscar Hernandez is asking for 3 years, $66 million. I think that's a deal for Teoscar. The guy drove in like 100 runs before May 1st last year.
The line? I mean, that guy was great.
He was awesome. That was the guy that I wish they had signed, not Shohei. Fuji Simeon says, Seiya and Roki's relationship unknown since they never played on a national team together. Most Japanese players respect Roki because of his family tragedy. Oh, I don't know that story. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
Simeon.
His agent is Joe Wolf. His agent is Joe Wolf, and Joel said some stuff at the winter meetings that made it seem like he certainly doesn't want to be in the center of media. He's very shy when it comes to media. He does not want to be in the center of that. Kind of like when Ohtani came over, because he knew he was going to LA, but he also knew that it wasn't, the Angels don't have a media crush on you. So, maybe the Giants fit into that because we're not New York. I mean, people don't realize New York is insane and LA is insane. And even though we're a major market, the fourth largest market in the country, media market wise, we don't have that kind of crush. So,
No.
Maybe that works in the favor of the Giants.
Well, that'd be great. That'd be great. Roki, come to San Francisco. You'll love it. You'll be on the Krueg show. It was hilarious. It was hilarious. I'm watching the Jung Hoo Lee presser, and the writers are like, trying to win him over, right? And I think Susan Slusser says to him, Jung Hoo, what is it that you do for fun when you're not at the ballpark? Right? It's real awkward, and the way she asks it was really tense. And the hilarious thing, he says something, but he doesn't speak English. And so then we get the interpreter, and the interpreter's like, I like to sit at home and eat good food made by my mother and watch YouTube.
He's like a kid.
That's what he said. That's what he said. He's like, I like to sit at home and eat good food cooked by my mother and watch YouTube. I mean, that's just awesome. And the mood in the room just went from like, what? We're covering a child.
His press conference was amazing.
It was fantastic. This live stream is sponsored by Better, the official daily fantasy sponsor of the Krueg Show. Use Better to make daily fantasy lineups and win real money. Download the app below. Make sure you use the promo code Niners to get your first deposit matched up to $200. Thanks to Better. Thanks to Sharp Corners. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Johnny, tell people if they want to follow you, they want to check out what you're putting out there on YouTube, where they can find you.
Thank you, by the way. I appreciate it. Krueg is leading the way. I ran into a guy tonight that was like, oh, my God, I love the Krueg show, and you're doing this now, and it's cool, and Damon's doing it now, and that's cool, and all this kind of stuff. But, John Lund Unleashed Pod, if you just search that, as you can see under there. At John Lund Radio, I post it every day. I'm up at 8 o'clock in the morning. I do a live show, and then like you, I post it later, do a bunch of shorts through the day. I'm just trying to follow the leader here with you.
Oh, man.
Be what you are one day. But John Lund Unleashed Pod on YouTube, at John Lund Radio for more information. And it's been awesome. It's so cool. And you know this, but I'm just getting back into it to just reconnect with fans, be able to talk the way you want to talk, really, just tell the truth. And it's been a lot of fun. And like I said, just watching you over this time and what you've done is just been amazing. And that's what I'm trying to do. It's really, really cool. I'm really enjoying connecting with people again. And it's awesome. It's been a really cool experience. And I've just been doing it a month or so. So it's been incredible.
Yeah. Everybody give John a follow and help him build up his channel. Two last ones here from Fuji Simeon. He says, Roki lost his dad and grandpa. They died in an earthquake tsunami years back. Oh, wow.
Yeah. I read that.
Oh, that's tragic. That's obviously tragic. Fuji Simeon says Roki had a testy relationship with the Japanese media. Well, I'll say this. I mean, this is a pretty soft media market. I think he would like it here. And you got your privacy. It's a big enough city where there's enough people doing enough things where, yes, you'd be recognized as a great Giant, but not like universally. You're going to still have your anonymity. It's not Green Bay, Wisconsin. It's not, hey, I just saw.
Right.
Oh my God. LaFleur was at the Piggly Wiggly. It's like, no. You're gonna be able to go to Safeway and probably there'll be people that recognize you, but it won't be overwhelming. And it's a beautiful place to live. Pacific Heights and be amazing. Buy a mansion, look over the Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, it's hard to beat that. So Roki, come here.
Offseason. It really would. I mean, a 23-year-old guy with the arsenal he has. And if they somehow got Burns, because Roki wouldn't cost you a lot, then Ray would be your 4, and then you could conceivably trade one of those young guys. I like Birdsong more than Harrison. I'm probably in the minority in that. I really like Birdsong's future.
Yeah, I do too.
It still hasn't, put it all together for me. I know he's got a ton of potential, but if you trade Harrison for a a first baseman. You trade Harrison to the Cubs for, say, a Suzuki or somebody like that. And somebody said that earlier. I don't know what Suzuki's relationship is with him. I'm not assuming that at all, and they weren't on the national team. But what I'm saying is I do wonder if there's a comfort level to already have a Japanese player there, to already have an interpreter there, to not have to be the only one. Now, Joel Wolf said that too, that maybe he would like to be the only one and kind of, get his own path going. But it tends to be that, it's just nice. I know that, like I said,
Jung Hoo's from Korea, right?
Right. Jung Hoo's from Korea. So I don't know that he
Korea.
knows those guys, but look, it would be amazing. It would be absolutely amazing because he's 23 years old and he's not going to cost you a ton. It's like having a rookie on the low pay scale that hasn't got
wonderful.
So
yeah, it could be absolutely fantastic. Sam Miguel says Krueger and Lund are poetry in motion in the purest sense of the term, and I love every second of it. Sam, thank you, bro. Appreciate you. Happy holidays to everybody in the chat. That's going to do it for us tonight. Did we not get this one? Fuji Simeon says Roki will go wherever the Japanese food is good. No, we got that. I thought that was early.
I got to think in San Francisco. I mean, there's every kind of food in San Francisco.
Oh yeah. I mean, and hey, this is a cosmopolitan city. It's a very popular spot. And the weather's incredible here. And I mean, it's all really about, does he want to be on the same team with Shohei and with Yamamoto, or does he want to establish a rivalry and go against them? I think if you ask Rob Manfred, it's probably in baseball's best interest to have Roki with the Giants. Now, if you had Roki and Burns and Webb and Robbie Ray, now it's like if the Giants could just find some hitting at all, now you've got what could be really, really great theater all summer with some of these premier pitching matchups. So should be fun to watch.
And I know we're saying we're going to go, and I won't be long when I say this. The Dodgers are ahead of you, but you've got to start looking at the Padres who are ahead of you. You got to look at the Diamondbacks who are young. You've got to catch those teams. For right now, it looks like unless the Dodgers have massive injuries, they're getting Ohtani back there. The one thing about the Dodgers too is you look at their starting rotation, and look, I know it's great, but Yamamoto threw 90 innings last year. Blake Snell threw 104 innings last year. Tyler Glasnow gets hurt every year. He threw 134. And their other projected starters in Gonsolin and Ohtani threw 0. So you're looking at 5 starters who threw about 328 innings combined last year. Now, will they do more than that this year? Probably. But Glasnow always gets hurt. Snell always seems to get hurt. On and on down the line. Ohtani's coming off Tommy John. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. But, Dustin May and Kershaw is not going to be relied upon. He's not even signed yet. Buehler's gone. A lot of those young guys, what was it? Emmett, I forgot the dude's last name.
Emmett Sheehan.
He got hurt last year. He did Tommy John. So, look, they haven't been healthy. The scary part about them is they pick up Flaherty and a couple other guys, and they win the World Series really without much starting pitching. It was amazing what they did.
You got to hit. I mean, you got to hit. They got a hell of a lineup, man. I mean, that's an unbelievable lineup with Freeman and Betts and Ohtani. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, the Giants look like Giants are, in a knife fight with a butter knife. I mean, it's just it's ridiculous.
The Padres too. I mean, the Padres are the same way. I mean, you go through lineup.
Giants got to find some hitters.
They do. I think they're pretty well set supposedly, but right field, first base, they cannot go into the season, I don't think, with Yastrzemski in right and with Lamont Wade Jr. first base. You cannot do that.
If you want to have a shot, those guys have to be backups. That's going to do it for us. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. Tomorrow's Christmas Eve, so I'll probably wind it down and not do a whole lot of streams the next couple of days.
Are you a real man? You start your shopping tomorrow?
You know what? My wife does all my shopping. I did like a couple of things, but I was given strict limitations and rules. And every time I go buy something, I get lectured. Why did you buy this? I'm like the guy. You've seen those commercials where the wife is telling the husband where to park, and he's like, it's amazing. I did this without you before. It's amazing. But yeah, my wife, was like, if I buy anything, she's like, questions it, doesn't like it. So I at this point, it's just like, what, knock yourself out. Knock yourself out, sweetheart. Do whatever you got to do, and spend wisely. But that is going to do it for us. Thanks to John. Thanks to all of you. As I said, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you. For the Krueg Show, we say peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.